Assalamualaikum and hi. Today me, Muhammad Irfan bin Idris. My registration number is 01 DKA20F1038 and I'm from Polytechnic Ungku Omak Ipoh Perak. And this is my last video presentation for the brickworks and concrete laboratory. So now we go into my words. So the code and subject is TCC 10022 Brickworks and Concrete Laboratory. My last title is the Sand Segregation Test. So shout out to my lectures. It is Tuan Azman bin Baharum, Tuan Muhammad Rashid bin Zakaria, and I'm from class DKA 1B. So for the first sand segregation test is introduction. The introduction is the increase in the volume of sand due to increase in moisture content is known as a bulking of sand or the sand segregation. A film of water is created around the sand particles which forces the particles to get aside from each other, and thus the volume is increased. The increase in moisture in sand increases the volume of sand. The volume increase in dry sand is known as the bulking in sand. If sand bulking of sand depends on the quantity of moisture in the sand and also the size of the particles. 5 to 8% of the increase in moisture the sand can increase the volume sand up to 20 to 40%. Again, the finer the sand is, more will be the increase in volume, and increase in volume will be relatively less for coarser sand. So sorry for this. So for the objective is this test is to determine the bulking factor of wet sand. The theory is BS1881 stated that the moisture content in the sand will cause the bulking of the volume. Moisture forms a film around each particle, and this film of moisture exerts surface tension which keeps the neighboring particles away from it. So it is exactly the same like the introduction. Therefore, when no point contact is possible between the particles, this causes bulking of sand. So now we go to the apparatus. There is four apparatus. First is the measuring cylinder, uh, like uh, like I put the picture on it. The second thing is the steering rod, also have a picture you can see in here. For the tree, you also can see the picture in here. And last apparatus is the scope. So now we go to the procedure. The first procedure is ensure that the measuring cylinder to be used is dry. Second is fill up the sand into the cylinder at the 2 per 3 head. Add in the sand slowly but do not compact it. The third one is level the surface of the sand using the rod and record the volume of the sand as a V1. Remove the sand and carefully pouring into the tray so that it will not be wasted. The fifth one is fill up the measuring cylinder to an amount of 250 millimeter, 350 millimeter with water. Fill in the measuring cylinder with half of the sand slowly, stirring the rod it to release the air content. So for the eighth one, next, fill the balance of the remaining sand into the measuring cylinder and stir it. So the ninth one is level the surface of the sand using the rod and measure the volume of the sand as a V2. And last but not least, repeat the above procedure to get the average of bulking factor. So this is my data collection and result. So for the volume bulking sand, for the V1, the first reading I get is the 350 millimeter, and for the V2 I get the 330 millimeter. uh, so for the first one I get is 6%. 6% after I just take this and and minus to this and divide by 300, divide by a v2, and it's like this: v1 minus v2, bracket v1 minus v2 equal to v2 times 100%. So I get the 6% for the first, for the v1. For the v2 I get the strongest. It is 25%, because the concrete will be okay if the average of bulking sand is 25%. So here, bulking factor of sand is determined in percentage as the ratio between the difference of wet sand volume to dry sand volume. The following formula is used to derive bulking factor. So bulking factor. So it's like as I said before. So for the question, why the seed test is why shall the seed test to carry out? So the seed test is carried out to determine the amount of silt, clay, or other fine dust that may be presented in a sand sample. The presence of such in a sand used in concrete will reduce the strength of the hardened concrete if exceeds a permitted limit. So for the second question is when the seed test, when the sand segregation test to be carried out. So when it comes to find the best concrete for the building, it is because when segregation test is not doing before using any concrete, it may get the concrete worse. So for the third question, uh, the answer is unrealistic volume is shown by fine aggregate due to bulking. When concrete proportioning is to perform, the sand bulking issues is a concern. If the effect of bulking is not studied properly, the concrete design will have an insufficient amount of sand resulting in harsh mix. Bulking of sand will affect the yield of concrete for a given cement content. So for the discussion, objective to determine bulking factor was assessed after the bulking factor value were obtained is 25%. The sand bulking could be anywhere from 20% to 40%, but should not be more than that. So this sample is good because the factors that I've got is in the range between 20% to 40% after my second reading is solved. So the conclusion, so I conclude that I have succeeded and reach the objectives of this test and learn how to adding sand in concrete to minimize the segregation of concrete. This test is to ensure that we using the right amount of sand and good to be used in constructing different structures, so we may apply it in the field of engineering, most especially in construction of constructors like buildings, roads, and bridges. So that's all for me. Thank you.